My newly married daughter's funeral felt strange. While I was crying, I received a message from her phone. "Dad, I'm alive. That's not me in the coffin." "Where are you?" I typed. "I'm home. Come here immediately. You're in danger." Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this and comment the city you're watching from. The funeral home smelled like lilies and grief. I sat in the front row staring at the closed casket that supposedly held my daughter Emma. My hands trembled as I gripped the funeral program with her smiling photo on the cover. 28 years old, gone in a car accident that didn't make sense. Linda sat beside me, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. My wife of 30 years had been devastated since we got the call 3 days ago. Derek, Emma's husband of just 6 months, sat on the other side of the casket, his head in his hands. His mother, Margaret, kept patting his shoulder, whispering things I couldn't hear. The pastor droned on about eternal peace and God's plan. I wasn't listening. None of this felt real. Emma had called me just last week, excited about a new job opportunity. She sounded happy, healthier than she'd been in months. The accident report said she'd fallen asleep at the wheel, but Emma was the most careful driver I knew. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. Nothing mattered anymore. My only child was gone. The phone buzzed again, then again. Linda noticed my discomfort. "Brian, turn that off," she whispered harshly. "This is Emma's funeral." I pulled out my phone to silence it, and my blood turned to ice. The messages were from Emma's number. "Dad, I'm alive. That's not me in the coffin." My hand started shaking so violently I nearly dropped the phone. I looked up at the casket, then back at the screen. Another message appeared. "Where are you?" I typed with trembling fingers. The response came immediately. "I'm at the house on Maple Street. Come now." "You're in danger." The old house, Emma's grandmother's place that we'd kept in the family. My heart pounded so hard I thought everyone could hear it. I glanced around the funeral home. Derek was still sobbing dramatically. Margaret's eyes were dry, I noticed. Linda was watching me with an expression I couldn't read. "I need some air," I whispered, standing abruptly. "Brian, sit down," Linda hissed. "People are staring." I didn't care. I walked out of that funeral home like a man possessed, leaving behind my wife, my son-in-law, and whoever was lying in that casket. The September air hit my face like a slap, but it couldn't clear the fog in my brain. The drive to Maple Street took 15 minutes that felt like hours. My mind raced with possibilities. Was someone playing a sick joke? Had I finally lost it from grief? But the messages kept coming from Emma's phone. "Hurry, Dad. They can't know you're here." "Who can't know?" I typed back. "Derek, Mom, Margaret, all of them." My stomach dropped. What did Linda have to do with any of this? I pulled into the driveway of the small blue house where Emma used to spend summers with her grandmother. The windows were dark, but I could see a faint light in the back bedroom. My legs felt like jelly as I walked to the front door. It opened before I could knock. Emma stood there, alive, real, breathing. Her dark hair was shorter, dyed blonde, but it was definitely my daughter. I grabbed her and held her so tight I thought I might break her. "Oh God, Emma. Oh my God." Tears streamed down my face. "I thought you were dead. We buried you. We're burying—" I couldn't finish the sentence. "I know, Dad. I'm so sorry." "Come inside quickly." She pulled me into the house and locked the door behind us. She looked thin, scared, but very much alive. We sat on the old couch where she used to read as a child. "Emma, what the hell is happening? Who's in that coffin?" She took a shaky breath. Her name was Jessica. She was homeless, about my age and height. She died in the county hospital the same night I was supposed to. Supposed to what? Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Dad, Derek was going to kill me. He and Margaret. They've been planning it for months." The words hit me like a physical blow. "That's impossible. Derek loves you." "Derek loves my inheritance, Dad. The one I'm supposed to get when you—" She couldn't say it. "They thought if I died first, Derek would inherit everything as my husband. Then when you died, he and Margaret would have it all." I felt sick. "Emma, that's crazy. You're imagining things." "Am I?" She stood up and walked to a small table, returning with a manila folder. "I found these in Derek's car last week." She handed me insurance papers, financial documents, even a copy of my will that I'd never given him. My hands shook as I read. There were notes in Derek's handwriting, about my assets, my health, my daily routines. "There's more, Dad." Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "Mom knew." The folder fell from my numb fingers. "What?" "Linda and Margaret have been friends for years, long before I met Derek. They set the whole thing up. Derek didn't meet me by accident at that coffee shop. They sent him to find me." My mind reeled. "Linda, my wife of 30 years, the mother of my child. That's not possible. Your mother loves you." Emma's laugh was bitter. "Does she, Dad? Really? Think about it. When was the last time she called me just to talk? When was the last time she seemed genuinely happy about anything in my life?" I thought back over the past few years. Linda had always been critical of Emma's choices, her career, her apartment. She'd pushed hard for Emma to marry Derek, even when Emma had doubts. And lately, Linda had been asking a lot of questions about my retirement accounts, my insurance policies. "The car accident was supposed to happen last Tuesday night," Emma continued. "Derek sabotaged my brakes, but I got suspicious when he kept insisting I'd drive his car instead of mine that night. So I took my car to a mechanic, and he found the brake lines had been cut. Why didn't you call the police?" "With what proof? Derek's word against mine? And I didn't know about Mom then. I thought I could trust her." Emma wiped her eyes. "So I decided to disappear. Make them think their plan worked while I figured out how to stop them." The body in the coffin. Jessica died that same night in the hospital. No family, no friends. I switched her ID bracelet with mine. By the time anyone realized the mistake, I was already gone. I've been hiding here ever since. I stared at my daughter, seeing her grandmother's determination in her eyes. "Emma, we have to tell someone. The police, the FBI, someone." "Not yet, Dad. We need more evidence. And we need to be careful. If they find out I'm alive before we're ready—" She didn't finish the sentence, but I understood. My phone buzzed. A text from Linda. "Where are you? The service is starting." Emma saw the message and grabbed my hand. "Dad, you have to go back. Act normal. If they suspect anything—" "I can't sit through your funeral knowing you're alive." "You have to, for now, until we figure out how to stop them." I looked at my daughter, my brave, clever daughter, who'd saved her own life. "What do we do?" Emma's eyes hardened. "We make them pay for what they've done, all of them." As I drove back to the funeral home, my hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. I'd walked into that building believing I'd lost everything that mattered. Now I knew the truth was so much worse than I'd imagined. I walked back into the funeral home like a man in a nightmare. The pastor was reading from Psalms while Linda dabbed her eyes with practiced precision. Derek sat hunched forward, the picture of a grieving widower. Margaret had her arm around him, playing the supportive mother-in-law. I took my seat, and Linda immediately grabbed my hand. "Where were you? You missed the eulogy." I needed air, I managed, my voice hoarse. Looking at her now, searching her face for any sign of the woman I'd loved for 3 decades, I saw only a stranger. The same blue eyes that used to look at me with warmth now seemed calculating. Had they always been that way? "You look pale," she whispered, pressing her palm to my forehead. "Are you feeling all right?" Every touch felt like poison. "I'm fine." Derek glanced over at us, his red-rimmed eyes meeting mine. "Mr. Morrison, I'm so sorry for your loss. She was everything to me." The words made my stomach turn. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. How long had he been planning this? How many nights had he lain in bed next to my daughter, plotting her death? After the service, people gathered around us offering condolences. I shook hands and accepted embraces, while my mind screamed. Mrs. Henderson from down the street hugged me tight. "Brian, honey, if you need anything—" "Thank you," I said automatically. These people genuinely cared. They had no idea they were mourning the wrong person while my daughter's killers stood right beside me. Linda announced to the crowd that we'd be having a small family gathering at our house afterward. Margaret stepped forward, still clutching Derek's arm. "That's so thoughtful, Linda. Derek needs to be around people who loved Emma." The way she said Emma's name, with just the slightest hint of distaste, made my blood boil. I watched Margaret's face more carefully now. She was probably in her 60s with silver hair and the kind of smile that never reached her eyes. I'd always thought she was reserved, maybe a little cold, but I'd attributed it to grief over losing her own husband years ago. Now I wondered what else I'd missed. At the house, Linda bustled around playing hostess while I sat in my recliner trying to process everything Emma had told me. Derek sat on the couch, still playing the devastated husband. He kept looking at photos of Emma on the mantel and sighing dramatically. She was so young, he said to no one in particular. We had so many plans. Plans to murder her, I thought, but kept my expression neutral. Margaret sat next to him, patting his knee. She wouldn't want you to blame yourself for the accident, honey. These things just happen. Accident. They were already cementing the lie in front of witnesses. I excused myself and went to the bathroom, locking the door and pulling out my phone. Emma had given me a new number to reach her. "How are you holding up?" she texted back immediately. "Barely. This is torture." "I know, Dad, but we need them to believe everything is normal. Are they acting suspicious?" I thought about it. Derek is performing grief pretty well. Margaret seems genuinely sad, but something feels off about her. "And your mother?" I couldn't finish. "What about Mom?" I stared at my phone, trying to find the words. She's being very attentive to me, making sure I'm okay, checking my forehead for fever. It feels forced. She's probably worried you're getting suspicious. "Dad, there's something else I need to tell you. Can you get away tonight?" "I think so." Linda will probably take sleeping pills. She has been since we got the news. "Meet me at the house at midnight. There are things you need to see." When I returned to the living room, I found Derek going through some of Emma's things that Linda had brought out. He was holding her jewelry box, running his fingers over the pearl necklace I'd given her for her college graduation. "I'd like to keep some of her jewelry," he said to Linda, "to remember her by." "Of course," Linda replied quickly. "Take whatever you want." I wanted to grab the box from his hands. That necklace had been my mother's. Emma had treasured it, but I forced myself to stay calm. Maybe we should wait a few days before going through her things. Derek looked up at me with those innocent eyes that I now knew hid a killer. "You're right, Mr. Morrison. I can't believe she's gone." Linda sat down beside me, taking my hand. "We're all struggling, honey, but we have each other." Margaret nodded approvingly. "Family is so important during times like this. We all need to stick together." The irony was sickening. They were talking about family while planning to destroy mine. Around 9 o'clock, people started leaving. Derek was among the last to go, embracing Linda at the door like she was his own mother. "Thank you for everything today. I don't know what I would have done without you and Brian." "You're family now," Linda said, her voice thick with fake emotion. "We'll get through this together." After everyone left, Linda and I sat in the living room in silence. She was going through sympathy cards, occasionally sighing or wiping her eyes. I watched her, trying to reconcile this woman with the mother who used to braid Emma's hair and read her bedtime stories. "I can't believe she's gone," Linda finally said, her voice breaking. "Neither can I replied, meaning something entirely different. She moved closer to me on the couch, resting her head on my shoulder. "At least we have each other, Brian. We'll always have each other." The weight of her head against my shoulder felt suffocating. "I think I'm going to take a shower and try to get some sleep." "Good idea. I'll probably take something to help me sleep. This day has been, She didn't finish. By 11:30, Linda was snoring softly in our bed. I slipped out quietly and drove to Maple Street, my heart pounding with each mile. Emma was waiting for me in the dark house, and the moment I saw her face, I knew the worst was yet to come. "Dad, I found more evidence today. About Mom." She handed me a shoebox. "Look through this. I'll make coffee." Inside the box were letters, photos, and documents that turned my world upside down. Letters from Margaret dating back 3 years, discussing the plan and how to handle the situation. Photos of Linda and Margaret having lunch, going shopping, looking like the best of friends while plotting my daughter's murder. But it was the last item that broke my heart completely. A handwritten note from Linda to Margaret, dated just 2 weeks ago. "Margaret, I've been thinking about our conversation. You're right that Emma has always been Brian's favorite. He's never loved me the way he loves her. When this is all over and Brian inherits, we can finally have the life we deserve. Derek is perfect for this. He's so desperate for money, he'll do anything. Just make sure he doesn't get cold feet. We can't afford mistakes. The sooner Emma is gone, the sooner we can all move forward." My hands were shaking as I set down the note. Emma returned with 2 cups of coffee and saw my expression. "I'm sorry you had to see that, Dad." "She never loved Emma," I said, my voice hollow. "All these years I thought we were a family." Emma sat beside me, taking my hand. "We are a family, Dad, you and me. We're the real family. They're just parasites who've been feeding off us for years." I looked at my daughter, seeing her mother's strength, but also something harder, something that reminded me of myself when I was younger and hungrier. What do we do now? Now we make sure they pay for what they've done, but we have to be smart about it. They think they've won, that they've gotten away with murder. We're going to let them keep thinking that, right up until the moment we destroy them. Emma's eyes held a coldness I'd never seen before, but I understood it. When someone tries to take everything from you, sometimes you have to become someone you never thought you could be. Tell me what you need me to do. The next morning I woke up feeling like I'd aged 10 years overnight. Linda was already in the kitchen making breakfast, humming softly to herself. The sound made my skin crawl. How could she be humming the day after burying what she thought was our daughter? "Good morning, honey," she said without turning around. "I made your favorite pancakes. I thought we could both use some comfort food." I sat at the kitchen table where Emma used to do her homework, where we'd shared thousands of meals as a family. Now everything felt contaminated by Linda's lies. "You seem better this morning," I observed, watching her closely. "I had a good talk with Margaret last night after you went to bed." She helped put things in perspective. Linda set a plate in front of me, her smile bright and artificial. "Life goes on, Brian. Emma would want us to be happy." The casual way she said Emma's name like she was discussing the weather made my stomach turn. What did Margaret say? "Oh, you know how wise she is. She lost her husband, so she understands grief. She reminded me that we still have each other, and that's what matters." Linda poured herself coffee, her movements too cheerful, too practiced. She also mentioned that Derek might need our help getting back on his feet. "Poor boy is so lost without Emma." What kind of help?" "Well, he's been having trouble at work since the accident. Can't concentrate, you know. Margaret thinks he might need to stay with us for a while until he gets back on his feet." Every word felt like another piece of the puzzle clicking into place. They wanted Derek close, where they could monitor me, control the situation. I forced myself to nod sympathetically. "Of course, whatever he needs." Linda's smile widened. "I knew you'd understand. You're such a good man, Brian. Emma was so lucky to have you as a father." The words hit like a slap. I excused myself and went to my home office, closing the door and immediately texting Emma. "Derek might be moving in with us. Linda says Margaret suggested it." Her response came quickly. "Perfect. That gives us access to both of them. Can you install a recording app on your phone without Linda noticing?" I spent the next hour figuring out how to activate voice recording on my phone discreetly. At 56, technology wasn't my strong suit, but desperation made me learn fast. Around noon, Margaret called. Linda answered on speakerphone, probably to make sure I heard every word. "Linda, dear, how are you holding up?" Margaret's voice was syrupy with fake concern. "Better today, thanks to our talk last night. Brian and I were just discussing Derek staying with us for a while." "Oh, how thoughtful. I think that would be wonderful for all of you. Derek could use the family support, and you and Brian shouldn't be alone right now either." I watched Linda's face as she talked to Margaret. There was something in her expression I'd never noticed before, a kind of satisfied cunning that made me realize I'd been blind for years. "Margaret, would you like to come for dinner tonight?" Linda asked. "I'm making pot roast, and I think we should all be together." "That sounds perfect. Derek will be so pleased." After Linda hung up, she turned to me with that bright false smile. "See, we're going to get through this as a family." That afternoon, while Linda was at the grocery store, I drove back to Maple Street. Emma was waiting with more evidence. Bank statements showing large cash withdrawals from Derek's account over the past 6 months. Emails between him and Margaret discussing timing and opportunities, and most damning of all, a receipt for the tools he'd used to sabotage Emma's car. "Where did you get all this?" I asked. "Derek's not as careful as he thinks he is. He left his laptop open at Margaret's house last week when I was there for dinner. I copied everything to a flash drive." Emma's face was grim. "Dad, there's something else." I think they've done this before. She handed me printouts of newspaper articles from 3 different states. 3 different men, all in their 50s or 60s, all died in accidents within a year of their daughters marrying Derek. In each case, Derek inherited everything, when the daughter died shortly after. My God, I whispered. He's a serial killer. And Margaret is his partner. Look at the dates. She moved to each city about 6 months before Derek met each victim. They're a team. My hands shook as I read the articles. Michael Patterson, 58, died in a house fire. His daughter Sarah died in a car accident 3 months later. David Chen, 61, fell down the stairs. His daughter Lisa drowned in her bathtub 2 months after that. Robert Williams, 55, had a heart attack. His daughter Amy died of an overdose 6 weeks later. The heart attack, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Dad, you've been having chest pains lately, haven't you? I had been. Stress, I'd thought. The cardiologist said my heart was fine, but Linda had been pushing me to get more tests, to see specialists. She'd even started giving me vitamins that were supposed to help with heart health. The vitamins? I said suddenly. Linda's been giving me new vitamins. Emma's face went white. Dad, we need to get those tested. Now. I drove home in a daze, my mind reeling with the implications. When I walked into the house, Linda was in the kitchen preparing for dinner, the picture of domestic bliss. There you are, honey. Where did you go? Just drove around, needed to clear my head. She walked over and put her arms around me, and I had to fight every instinct not to pull away. Poor baby, you're still processing everything. Why don't you take your vitamins and rest before dinner? She reached for the bottle on the counter, shaking out 2 large pills. I took them from her hand, pretending to swallow them while actually palming them. Good boy, she said, kissing my cheek. Margaret and Derek will be here at 6. I went to the bathroom and spit the pills into my hand, wrapping them in tissue. These were going straight to Emma for testing. When Derek and Margaret arrived for dinner, I watched them with new eyes. Derek hugged Linda like she was his own mother, holding on just a little too long. Margaret assessed me with those cold eyes, probably checking to see if the pills were working yet. Brian, you look tired, Margaret said, her voice full of false concern. Are you sleeping well? Not really. This whole thing has been a shock. Of course it has, Derek chimed in. I haven't slept more than a few hours a night since the accident. I keep expecting Emma to walk through the door. But the way he said it, with just the right amount of grief in his voice, would have fooled me completely a week ago. Now I saw it for what it was, a carefully rehearsed performance. During dinner, Linda kept pushing food on me, encouraging me to eat more, drink more wine. You need to keep your strength up, she said, refilling my glass for the 3rd time. Margaret nodded approvingly. Linda's right. Grief can be so hard on the body. You need to take care of your health. Derek, meanwhile, was regaling us with stories about Emma, painting himself as the devoted husband who'd lost his soulmate. He used to make me coffee every morning, he said, his voice catching. I don't know how to start my day without her. I wanted to reach across the table and strangle him with my bare hands. Instead, I nodded sympathetically and played the grieving father. After they left, Linda was practically glowing with satisfaction. That went well, don't you think? It's good for Derek to talk about Emma, part of the healing process. You seem very invested in Derek's healing, I observed carefully. Well, of course I am. He's family now, and Margaret has been such a comfort to me. It's nice to have another woman to talk to who understands loss. I nodded, making mental notes of everything she said. Emma had given me a small recording device to hide in my shirt pocket, and I'd captured every word of the evening. Later that night, after Linda took her sleeping pills and went to bed, I called Emma from my car in the driveway. They're definitely planning something, I told her. Linda's pushing food and wine on me, Margaret keeps asking about my health, and Derek is moving in tomorrow. The vitamins? I saved them. 2 pills from today. Good. I'll have them tested first thing tomorrow. Dad, we need to speed this up. If those pills are what I think they are, you don't have much time. What do you mean? Emma's voice was quiet but determined. I mean they're not planning to wait much longer to kill you too. The line went dead, and I sat in my car in the dark, staring at my house where my wife was sleeping peacefully, probably dreaming about all the money she'd inherit once I was dead. I wasn't going to let that happen. Emma and I were going to make sure of it. Derek moved in the next day with 2 suitcases and a duffel bag, playing the part of the heartbroken widower who couldn't bear to stay in the apartment he'd shared with Emma. Linda fussed over him like a mother hen, making up the guest room and cooking his favorite meals. "You're so kind to let me stay," Derek said to me as we sat in the living room after dinner. "I just can't face being alone right now." "We understand completely," Linda replied before I could speak. "Your family, Derek. This is where you belong." I watched the exchange with growing disgust. The way Linda touched Derek's shoulder, the way she anticipated his needs, it all felt rehearsed. They'd probably been planning this living arrangement for months. That night, Emma called while Linda was in the shower. "Dad, the pills tested positive for digitalis. It's a heart medication that can be deadly in high doses. They've been slowly poisoning you." My blood ran cold. "How long have I been taking them?" "When did Linda start giving you the new vitamins?" I thought back. "About 2 months ago, right after we got back from that weekend trip to the lake." "The same weekend Derek proposed to me," Emma said grimly. "Dad, they've been planning this for a while. The digitalis builds up in your system slowly. Eventually, it would have caused what looked like a natural heart attack. What do I do?" "Stop taking them, obviously, but we need to be careful. If they notice you're not getting sick, they might try something more direct." "Emma, I can't keep pretending much longer, looking at Derek, at your mother, knowing what they've done." "I know, Dad, but we're close to having everything we need. Just a few more days." The next morning, Linda was back to her routine of pushing the vitamins on me. I palmed them again, but this time, Derek was watching from the kitchen doorway. "Mr. Morrison, are you feeling all right? You look a little pale." "Just tired," I replied, but Derek's eyes lingered on my face with the calculating look of someone assessing his work. Linda joined the conversation. "Maybe you should see Dr. Patterson again. Those chest pains have been getting worse." I hadn't had chest pains in weeks, not since I'd stopped taking their poison. "I'm fine, Linda, just grieving." "Grief can manifest physically," Margaret said as she walked into the kitchen. She'd started showing up every morning now, ostensibly to check on Derek, but really to monitor my condition. "My late husband had chest pains for months before his heart attack. You really should get checked." The way she emphasized heart attack made my skin crawl. They were already setting up the narrative for my death. Derek nodded seriously. "Emma would want you to take care of your health, Mr. Morrison. She'd never forgive me if something happened to you because I didn't speak up." The audacity of him invoking Emma's memory made me want to punch him. Instead, I agreed to make a doctor's appointment, knowing I'd never keep it. That afternoon, while the 3 conspirators were out shopping together, probably planning my funeral, I met Emma at a coffee shop across town. She'd been dyeing her hair darker and wearing glasses as a disguise, but she was still recognizably my daughter. "We need to end this soon, Dad. I found something else." She slid a manila envelope across the table. "Derek's been in contact with someone about selling the house." Inside were printed emails between Derek and a real estate agent discussing the best time to list the property and how quickly they could close. The conversations were dated just 3 days after Emma's supposed death. "He's not even waiting for me to die," I said, my voice hollow. "There's more. Look at the last email." Derek had written, "The old man should be gone within the month. Heart problems run in his family, so no one will be suspicious. Once he's out of the picture, we can move fast on the sale. Margaret thinks we should put it on the market immediately after the funeral." I stared at the words until they blurred together. These people had planned out my death like a business transaction. "Dad, there's something else I need to tell you about Mom." I looked up from the emails. "What now?" Emma's face was pained. "I hired a private investigator to look into her background, her real background." She pulled out another folder. "Linda Morrison isn't her real name." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What are you talking about?" "Her name is Linda Patterson. She was married before to a man named Michael Patterson." The name sounded familiar. Then it hit me. Michael Patterson was one of the men in the newspaper articles, one of Derek's previous victims. "Oh my God," I whispered. "She wasn't just another victim, Dad. She was Derek's partner from the beginning. Michael was her first husband. They killed him together, along with his daughter, Sarah. Then Linda changed her identity and moved here, where she met you. I felt like the ground was disappearing beneath my feet. My entire marriage, my entire adult life, had been built on lies. How long have you known? I've suspected something was wrong with Mom for years, but I only got confirmation yesterday. Dad, you were never her husband. You were her mark. The coffee shop around us seemed to fade away as the implication sank in. 28 years of marriage. 28 years of thinking I knew the woman I shared a bed with, raised a child with, built a life with. The investigator found records going back 15 years, Emma continued gently. Linda Patterson, Margaret Vance, and Derek Wilson have been running this scam across multiple states. They target older men with assets and adult daughters. Margaret scouts the marks, Derek marries the daughter, and Linda gets close to the father. Then they eliminate the obstacles and take everything. Why didn't they kill me first? Because they needed you alive to provide access to your accounts, to Emma, to everything. Plus, if you died first, Emma would have inherited everything immediately. This way, with Emma dead first, you inherit her portion, and when you die, Derek gets it all as your son-in-law. I put my head in my hands, trying to process the magnitude of the deception. 28 years, Emma. I gave her 28 years of my life. I know, Dad. I'm so sorry. All this time, I thought she loved us. I thought we were a family. Emma reached across the table and took my hand. We are a family, you and me. That's real. Everything else was just lies. I looked up at my daughter, my brave, brilliant daughter who'd figured out the truth and saved both our lives. What do we do now? Now we give them exactly what they think they want, but on our terms. That evening, I went home and played the part of the slowly dying man. I complained about chest pains, let Linda fuss over me, and took the poison pills she gave me, or pretended to, while actually spitting them out later. Derek was particularly attentive at dinner, asking about my symptoms, suggesting I should update my will just to be safe. That's a morbid topic, I said, watching his reaction. I just think Emma would want you to be prepared, he replied smoothly. She worried about you, you know. She mentioned once that you'd never talked about your end-of-life wishes. The lie rolled off his tongue so easily. Emma had never worried about me dying because she was young and assumed I'd be around forever. But Derek was pushing, trying to accelerate the timeline. Linda nodded supportively. Derek's right, honey. We should probably review all our documents, make sure everything is in order. What's the rush? I asked, testing them. Margaret, who'd somehow appeared for dinner again, jumped in. It's not about rushing, Brian. It's about being responsible. After losing Emma so suddenly, well, it really makes you think about how quickly life can change. I agreed to meet with our lawyer the following week, which seemed to satisfy them. But as I lay in bed that night, listening to Linda's steady breathing beside me, I knew I was running out of time. They were getting impatient, and impatient killers make mistakes. Emma and I were going to make sure their next mistake was their last. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Tomorrow, we spring the trap. Are you ready? I looked at the woman sleeping next to me, the woman who'd shared my bed for nearly 3 decades while planning my murder, and typed back, more than ready. The plan was simple, but dangerous. Emma would reveal herself at the moment when they least expected it, when their guard was down, and they thought they'd won. We'd record everything, get them to confess, and then turn it all over to the FBI. I spent the morning acting sicker than usual, complaining about dizziness and chest pain. Linda was practically glowing with anticipation, fussing over me while probably calculating how much longer she'd have to pretend to care. Maybe you should lie down, honey, she said, her voice dripping with fake concern. You look terrible. Derek nodded from his spot at the kitchen table, where he'd been on his laptop all morning, probably researching funeral homes or real estate agents. Mr. Morrison, should I call the doctor? No, I just need to rest. I made my way slowly to the living room, ham it up for their benefit. Every step was an Oscar-worthy performance. Margaret arrived around noon, carrying a casserole dish and wearing an expression of practiced sympathy. Linda called and said you weren't feeling well. I brought soup. You're so thoughtful, Linda gushed, but I caught the meaningful look that passed between them. Margaret wasn't here to bring soup. She was here to assess whether I was close enough to death to proceed with whatever they had planned next. "Brian looks awful," Margaret whispered to Linda, not quite quietly enough. "Maybe it's time to call Dr. Patterson." "I think you're right," Linda replied. "I'm worried about his heart." They were setting up the final scene, preparing the narrative for my inevitable heart attack. I closed my eyes and listened to them discussing my symptoms, my prognosis, my rapidly declining health. It was like listening to vultures circling overhead. Derek joined their whispered conference. "Should I be worried? I mean, if something happens to him..." "You'll be fine," Margaret assured him. "Everything is in order. Linda made sure of that years ago." Years ago. The words hit me like a sledgehammer. They'd been planning this since Emma was a child, maybe since the day Linda and I got married. My entire adult life had been leading to this moment. Around 3 o'clock, Linda announced she was going to the pharmacy to pick up some medication the doctor had supposedly called in. "Derek, will you stay with Brian? I don't want to leave him alone." "Of course," Derek said, settling into the chair across from me. "We'll be fine." Margaret decided to run errands too, leaving Derek and me alone in the house. This was it, the moment Emma and I had been waiting for. Derek thought he was babysitting a dying man, but he was about to get the shock of his life. I waited until Linda's car disappeared down the street, then pulled out my phone. "Now," I texted Emma. Derek was scrolling through his phone, probably checking his bank account or browsing real estate listings, when the doorbell rang. "I'll get it," he said, standing up. "You just rest." I heard the front door open, then Derek's sharp intake of breath. "What the hell?" "Hello, Derek," Emma's voice carried clearly from the foyer. "Miss me?" The sound of Derek stumbling backward, the thud as he hit the wall, it was music to my ears. I sat up straighter, my illness suddenly forgotten, and watched as Emma walked into the living room. She looked nothing like the frightened woman who'd been hiding for days. Her hair was back to its natural color. She was wearing the blue dress I'd bought her for her birthday, and her eyes held a steel I'd never seen before. She looked like a woman who'd come back from the dead for revenge. Derek's face had gone white as paper. You're dead. I saw your body. We buried you. You buried Jessica Martinez, a homeless woman who died of pneumonia, in the county hospital," Emma said calmly, pulling out her phone to start recording. "But you already knew that, didn't you? Because you're the one who switched the bodies." "That's insane. You're talking crazy. The stress of losing you must have..." "Dad, are you feeling better?" Emma asked, turning to me with a small smile. I stood up, stretching dramatically. "Better, sweetheart. Amazing what stopping those poisoned vitamins can do for a man's health." Derek's mouth fell open. "Poisoned? What are you talking about?" Emma walked closer to him, and I saw him shrink back against the wall. "Digitalis, Derek. The same thing you used on Michael Patterson, David Chen, and Robert Williams." "Did you really think we wouldn't figure it out?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" Emma pulled out a manila folder, the same one with all the evidence we'd gathered, "because I have bank records showing your payments to the hospital orderly who helped switch the bodies. I have emails between you and Margaret planning my murder. I have the receipts for the tools you used to sabotage my car." Derek's eyes darted toward the door, but Emma was blocking his path. "And I have this." She played a recording on her phone. Derek's own voice filled the room, clear as day. The old man should be gone within the month. Heart problems run in his family, so no one will be suspicious. "That's not me," Derek stammered. "That's fake. You doctored that recording." "Did I?" Emma smiled coldly. "Did I also doctor the DNA evidence from Jessica's body? Because when the FBI exhumes her remains, they're going to find your fingerprints all over her hospital bracelet. The same bracelet you used to switch our identities." Derek slumped against the wall, his face pale and sweaty. "You can't prove any of this." "Actually, we can." I stepped forward, enjoying the fear in his eyes. "You see, Derek, you made one crucial mistake. You underestimated my daughter." "And you underestimated my father," Emma added. "Did you really think he wouldn't notice the symptoms of digitalis poisoning? The man's been taking heart medication for years. He knows what those symptoms feel like." That was a lie. I'd never had heart problems before they started poisoning me. But Derek didn't need to know that. "Where's Mom?" Emma asked me, her voice deceptively casual. "Pharmacy," I replied. "She should be back soon, along with Margaret." Derek's head snapped up at Margaret's name. She's not coming back here. She's not part of this. Emma laughed, a sound devoid of humor. Oh, Derek, Margaret's been part of this longer than any of us, including Mom. What do you mean? I mean Linda Patterson Morrison has been running this con with Margaret for 15 years. They've killed at least 4 men and their daughters that we know of, maybe more. Derek shook his head violently. No, Linda loves Brian. She's been married to him for decades. Linda loves Brian's money, Emma corrected. She's been slowly poisoning him while playing the devoted wife, all while planning the perfect murder. Just like she did to her first husband, Michael Patterson. The color drained completely from Derek's face. Michael Patterson? Your first victim, Derek? Linda's first husband. The one she helped you kill before she changed her name and moved here to find her next mark. Emma's voice was ice cold. My father. Derek slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor, his head in his hands. This is insane. This is all insane. What's insane, I said, my voice filled with all the rage I'd been holding back, is that you thought you could murder my daughter and get away with it. What's insane, Emma added, is that you've been living in our house, eating our food, letting my father comfort you, while planning to kill him too. Derek looked up at us, and for the first time, I saw him as he really was. Not the grieving widower, not the lost young man, but a cold-blooded killer who'd been playing a part for months. How long have you known? He asked quietly. I figured out something was wrong when you kept insisting I drive your car that night, Emma replied. So I had my mechanic check my brakes. When I found out they'd been cut, I knew it was either you or someone close to you. And once Emma told me the truth, I continued, it wasn't hard to put the rest together. Your story never made sense, Derek. Emma was the most careful driver I know. She would never fall asleep at the wheel. Derek was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. When he looked up again, there was something different in his eyes. Resignation, maybe, or relief at finally dropping the pretense. You don't understand, he said quietly. I never wanted to hurt Emma. I actually liked her. You have a funny way of showing it, Emma snapped. Margaret said it would be quick, painless. The car accident, I mean. She said Emma wouldn't suffer. The casual way he discussed my daughter's planned murder made my vision blur with rage. You son of a bitch. And my father? Emma asked. Was his death going to be quick and painless too? Derek shrugged. The heart attack would have been natural. The digitalis just speeds things along. He wouldn't have known what was happening. Hey, I wanted to kill him with my bare hands. The only thing that stopped me was the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. That'll be Linda and Margaret, Emma said, checking her phone. Perfect timing. Now we get to hear what they have to say about all this. Derek scrambled to his feet. You can't let them know I told you anything. They'll kill me. They're going to kill you anyway, Emma pointed out. You're a liability now, just like every other partner they've had. The front door opened, and Linda's cheerful voice called out, Brian, I'm back with your medication. Emma and I exchanged a look. The final act was about to begin. Linda walked into the living room carrying a pharmacy bag, her face bright with false cheer. I got your prescription, honey, and I picked up some of that tea you like. The bag fell from her hands, pills scattering across the hardwood floor. Margaret appeared behind her, stopping dead in the doorway when she saw Emma standing in our living room, very much alive. Hello, Mother, Emma said, her voice steady as stone. Linda's mouth opened and closed like a fish, gasping for air. Margaret recovered first, her face shifting from shock to calculating coldness in seconds. Emma, sweetheart, Margaret said carefully, what a wonderful surprise. We thought you were... How did you survive the accident? There was no accident, Margaret, and you know it. Linda found her voice, though it came out as a hoarse whisper. Emma, but we buried you. We had a funeral. You buried Jessica Martinez, I said, standing up from my chair and enjoying the way Linda flinched. A homeless woman whose identity Derek stole to cover up his failed murder attempt. Linda's eyes darted between Emma and me, her brain clearly working overtime to figure out how much we knew. Brian, honey, you're not making sense. The grief must be affecting your thinking. Actually, I've never thought more clearly in my life. I pulled out my phone, showing her the recording app that had been running for the past 20 minutes. We have everything, Linda. Derek's confession, your correspondence with Margaret, the digitalis you've been feeding me, all of it. Margaret stepped forward, her composure cracking slightly. This is all very dramatic, but I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding, Emma said, was thinking you could get away with murdering innocent people for their money. Linda suddenly lunged for the door, but I was ready for her. I grabbed her arm and she spun around, her mask finally slipping completely. "Let go of me," she snarled. And for the first time in 28 years, I saw the real Linda, cold, vicious, completely without remorse. 28 years, I said, my voice breaking slightly. 28 years I loved you. I trusted you. I built a life with you. You were a mark, Brian, a lonely widower with assets and a daughter. That's all you ever were. The words should have hurt, but instead they felt like liberation. The woman I'd mourned was never real in the first place. Margaret tried a different approach, turning to Emma with a grandmother's sad smile. "Darling, I think you're confused. Derek has been devastated by your death. We all have." Have you?" Emma pulled out her phone, playing another recording. Margaret's own voice filled the room. "The old man should be dead by now. Derek needs to be more aggressive with the dosage." Margaret's fake smile disappeared. "Where did you get that? Your house is easier to bug than you think, especially when you leave the windows open during your planning sessions." Derek, who'd been silent since Linda and Margaret arrived, suddenly spoke up. "It's over. They know everything. About all of us, about all the others." "Shut up, Derek," Margaret snapped, her composure finally cracking completely. But Derek was past caring. Michael Patterson, David Chen, Robert Williams. How many more, Margaret? How many more families have we destroyed? Linda whirled on him. "You weak, pathetic little man. We gave you everything, money, purpose, a chance to be more than the worthless loser you were when we found you. You turned me into a murderer," Derek shot back. "I was just a con man before I met you. Small-time fraud, credit card scams. I never killed anyone until you." Emma stepped closer to the group, her phone still recording. "Tell us about Michael Patterson, Linda. Tell us about your first husband." Linda's laugh was bitter, ugly. Michael was even easier than Brian. Trusting, stupid, completely devoted to his precious daughter Sarah. It was almost too easy to manipulate him. "And when you killed him?" Margaret staged a beautiful house fire. Very tragic. Poor Michael, trying to save his daughter and getting overcome by smoke. Linda's eyes glittered with malice. "Sarah lasted 2 more months before her accident." I felt sick listening to her casual description of murder, but Emma pressed on. "And David Chen?" "Oh, David was more challenging. He actually suspected something was wrong when his daughter Lisa started having doubts about Derek. We had to move faster than we wanted." Margaret nodded, like she was discussing a business deal. "The stairfall was Derek's idea, though, I have to admit. It was inspired. Made it look like David had been drinking." "Which he was," Derek added quietly. "I'd been spiking his drinks for weeks. Made the accident more believable." Emma turned to Linda, her voice deadly calm. "And Robert Williams?" "Robert was my masterpiece," Linda said, her voice full of sick pride. "I played the grieving widow so perfectly. He actually proposed to me just 3 months after David's death. Of course, I was already planning his funeral." The casual way she discussed destroying lives, ending families, made my hands shake with rage. But Emma wasn't done. "How many others, Linda? How many families did you destroy before you found us?" Linda shrugged. "Does it matter? You can't prove any of it. And who's going to believe the word of a dead girl and her delusional father?" "The FBI will," I said quietly. Linda's face went white. "What?" Emma smiled for the first time since this nightmare began. "Did you think we'd confront you without backup? Dad called the FBI this morning. They've been listening to everything from the van parked across the street." As if on cue, we heard car doors slamming outside, followed by the sound of boots on the front porch. "FBI? Open up." Margaret made a desperate grab for the back door, but Derek blocked her path. "I'm not running anymore," he said quietly. "I'm tired of running." Linda looked around frantically, like a trapped animal, before turning to me one last time. "Brian, please, we can work this out. I do love you. In my own way. We can—" "No," I said firmly. "We can't. You're not the woman I married because that woman never existed. The front door burst open and FBI agents flooded into the house. Linda screamed and cursed as they cuffed her, calling me names that would have crushed me yesterday but now just seemed pathetic. Margaret went quietly, her face a mask of cold fury. Derek actually seemed relieved as they read him his rights. Mr. Morrison, the lead agent said to me, we're going to need full statements from both you and your daughter. Of course, I replied, watching as they led Linda away in handcuffs. Whatever you need. Emma came to stand beside me as the agents finished processing the scene. Are you okay, Dad? I thought about it for a moment. My wife of 28 years was a serial killer. My son-in-law had tried to murder my daughter. My entire adult life had been built on lies and manipulation. I'm free, I said finally. For the first time in decades, I'm actually free. 3 months later, Emma and I sat on the porch of a small house in Montana, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. We'd sold the house in Ohio, too many bad memories, and moved somewhere clean and quiet where we could start over. The trial had been a media sensation. Linda, Margaret, and Derek were all facing multiple murder charges across several states. The FBI had linked them to at least 7 deaths, possibly more. Linda showed no remorse even during sentencing. Margaret was stoic to the end. Derek cooperated fully, hoping for a reduced sentence. Do you ever miss her? Emma asked one evening as we sat by the fireplace. The woman you thought she was, I mean. I considered the question. I mourned that woman when I learned the truth. But how can you miss someone who never existed? Emma nodded, understanding. She'd been through her own process of grief and recovery, dealing with the trauma of being hunted by someone she'd trusted. I'm proud of you, I told her, for figuring it out, for saving both our lives. You're braver than I ever was. We saved each other, Dad. That's what real families do. We sat in comfortable silence, listening to the wind through the pine trees. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called to its mate. For 56 years, I'd thought I understood what family meant. I'd thought love required sacrifice, compromise, endurance. I'd stayed in a marriage built on lies because I believed that was what commitment looked like. Now I knew better. Real love didn't require you to lose yourself. Real family didn't plot your destruction while smiling at your dinner table. And sometimes the greatest act of love was having the courage to walk away from the people trying to destroy you. Emma and I were building something new now, a relationship based on truth instead of manipulation, on genuine affection instead of obligation. It was smaller than what I'd had before, quieter, but it was real. And for the first time in my adult life, that was enough. The sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Tomorrow would bring new possibilities, new chances to build something authentic and good. I was 56 years old and my real life was just beginning.